Not yet.
Kristen, you'll let me know when we're live. Okay. So Mark, we're live.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. Sorry I'm in remote today. I'd like to call the meeting of the Bethlehem Board of Trustees for Tuesday, December 13th to order, with the first order of business being public participation. I don't know if there's anyone in the room there or anyone has come.
We do.
Yep. Okay, great.
Can you hear me with us? For those of you who don't remember, I'm Ann Moore, and I live down the street. I have just two things to mention today. The first is my listening to your conversation at last month's meeting about the use of community rooms in the library. And this is a conversation that has been happening with this body for as long as I have lived in the neighborhood. One of the things that I would, as a community member and a neighbor, an immediate neighbor, I would like to say that the library, in my opinion, the library program should come first. This is not a community center, and I know that it is used heavily by the community, but this is not a community center in those terms. There needs to be a community center, and there have been on and off pushes for that to happen on the town board level, but that has not happened yet. Given the increase in size of the town of Bethlehem, the number of people who live here, the number of organizations that have increased over the years that I have lived in the town, it becomes very difficult if that is going to be your focus. Is to make community groups your focus. It's going to become extremely difficult for the library to have a finite size and to have a finite presence in the community, because the more people you have, the more people are going to want to use this facility. It's a good facility. And so I would encourage you to make the library available when it's not being used for library programs, but to keep in mind that this really is a library and that should be your major focus. The second thing is I have been attending the Bethlehem Forward meetings, and the last one was, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, I can't remember now. But at that meeting, it is very clear to me that Bethlehem, the town of Bethlehem, is moving in the direction of the less and less use of fossil fuels in the town of Bethlehem. There's even discussion at the last meeting of banning electric leaf blowers and lawn mowers and that kind of thing because of the amount of carbon they release into the air. I've been, again, looking at your plan for the new library and the new addition to the library, and I'm not seeing a lot of, and maybe it's because I'm not looking at it correctly, but I'm not seeing a lot of emphasis on making the library building itself greener. And I think, given that, first of all, we are in a pretty dramatic time as far as climate is concerned. We are clearly at the meetings that the town board is holding for the comprehensive plan, moving in a direction of not wanting to have fossil fuel usage in the town be as heavy as it is. I think it would behoove this group in your discussions of the new library addition to make some provisions for greener energy and a greener building. And so those are all my only two comments this evening.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Is there any comments online or anything came in on the email?
Let me check. No, I have no further emails.
Okay, great. Let's go on to the previous meeting minutes on pages 2 through 5 in the packet. Any comments or concerns with those meeting minutes?
Oh, actually, I'm checking my notes.
So Charmaine, just you want to push your button to make it green because you're on, and then you'll be live.
Okay, thank you. I just noticed on my notes that in reading last week's minute, last month's meeting, I believe it was Ms. Moore who, I'm mindful of her comments on the need or for us to share information as the building project moves along.
Okay, that's great. I'll take a motion on the minutes.
So moved.
Okay.
And I'll
great.
second it.
Okay, all those in favor of the meeting minutes, please raise your hand. In opposition, those pass. Motion carries. Okay, financial report, pages 6 through 14.
Okay, we're on track as of this point in the year, although there are some variances where, most notably, we're a little bit over budget in utilities right now. But we're under budget in other areas that offsets that. One thing I do want to mention is that due to the terms of the contract, we did make the longevity payments in November this year, where last year those payments were made in December. So if you're comparing from this year to last year, there's a bit of a variance there, but it'll even out as time goes on. We're still tracking about 3% under budget in salaries due to a few open positions that we're holding open. The other thing I wanted to mention is that there continues to be really no change in interest rates, and I don't see any opportunity to make any changes to where we're holding our money. We're doing the best we can under the circumstances in this time. Does anybody have any questions about anything?
Thank you, Carrie. I think it's very clear on how to read it.
I was just curious what was the increase in the utilities? Was it anything, one thing in particular we didn't foresee, or?
I think it's more just the cost.
It's the
It's not.
Raising or
Rising
rising costs.
prices.
Yeah.
If you look at the utility graph, our usage is definitely way down from a few years ago. Last year and this year, our usage in both gas and electric are down very well. So, as bad as it is that the rates are going up, so our net cost is going up, it would be a lot worse if we had not done the HVAC improvements.
Well, I know even for private citizens, utility costs are going up. So, okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
It would be interesting to know for next meeting that if the library were at full staff, would we be tracking at the level we budgeted for, over the level we budgeted for, or so on? Because you mentioned it was 3% under because of the staffing levels. So the question is, if just in terms of thinking about budgeting even far out to the spring, if all the positions were filled, what situation would we be in?
Okay, I can definitely do that. I mean, off the top of my head, I think we'd be on track. We'd be right on budget. But I do want to verify that. I'll do some work to do that.
Did we budget at full, or did we take a credit? I thought we talked about taking a credit for unfilled positions.
We did, yes, we did.
Okay,
We did.
so we did take a credit for unfilled positions.
Yes.
So if everybody was filled full time, we would over budget. Yeah, so we did assume there would be some. I think we did.
Right, yes, no, that is
Yeah.
true. That is true.
Yeah.
And there has been a little bit of turnover, right?
Yeah.
Which happens during the year that isn't predictable. So we made some conservative assumptions. Hopefully they're conservative.
Yes.
And we'll have a better idea at the end of the year if those assumptions were good. And going forward, we can use that same philosophy to project, do an estimate. I think it helps us to get a little closer to the budget rather than having big swings.
Yeah, less open positions and it's the expected turnover. I think that's
Right.
so.
Right.
It's also the people which level that they leave. If you have page turnover, it's different than librarian turnover,
Correct, especially the more senior the people who are leaving, the bigger the difference.
Yeah. Okay, was there any questions on the financial report? Other questions or comments? I'm not seeing anything in the room. Okay, I'll take a motion on the financial treasurer's report.
I'll move to accept the treasurer's report as presented on
Okay,
this 6 through 4, or on page 6 through 14, and including the disbursement schedule.
I'll second it.
okay, great. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion, further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand or saying aye. Okay, seeing no opposition, that motion also carries. Okay, going on to the personnel report on page 15.
Okay, there's only one open position. I'm trying to moderate myself so I don't blast everybody out at home. It's just a Page resigned, and I would like to see permission to hire that Page position.
Can you use the plus button just to blow that up a little bit further? Or increase the size of the
Yeah, that's help. Yeah, that helps.
I can go one more. So just under actions requested.
Okay, that seems pretty self-explanatory. So can I have a motion on the personnel report?
I make a motion to accept the personnel report as presented on page 15 of the board packet.
Okay,
No, second.
okay, thank you. Any discussion? Please signify your affirmative vote by raising your hand. Okay, seeing no opposition, that motion carries as well. Moving on to the director report, Jeff.
Okay, so, yeah.
How many roles are open right now? Are you actively recruiting for?
We are seeking to fill most of the, let me roll back up here. There's a temporary that we're filling with a couple extra hours for some part-time people instead of filling that job. The main one that's here that is we would like to be actively recruiting is the librarian 2, but we're on hold because of Albany County Civil Service. That title's on hold. So that's one that I can't actively fill right now. And then I believe, Tracy, nod at me if we're on all of the part-time Page and clerk positions, we would be pursuing to fill. Yeah, in the near future. That's just, we're just scaling that based on the percentage of our circulation, physical circulation, of what our expected physical circulation should be. So, yeah.
Okay, great, thanks. Any other questions? Going on to director's report.
All right, so we'll just roll right in here. I know you've all seen this already, but I just do want to say that I'm very pleased that we were able to pull off a successful hybrid staff development day. We did not have one at all last year, so it was just nice to see the day. And again, I want to say thank you to the trustees for supplying the snacks for the staff. Everybody either received them the day before, on the day, or they were in their mailboxes over the weekend. So I'm very appreciative of that. So thank you all. Thank you all for that. I was pleased that in the returns, frequently people like the state of the library, but this year our speakers, the guest speakers that we had in, actually were the two highest ranking things. So we had our speaker on microaggressions. She came in. She was very, very highly thought of by the staff, as was the EAP presentation that we had in the afternoon. So while I like to do the state of the library and I like it to be fun, I'm also much happier to have some of our speakers have some of the more popular segments of the day. So I think it went very well. And depending on what we're going on next year, there are certainly many people who expressed a desire to do it in person. We'd love to do that in person. This year just wasn't a good year to do it in person. So. Of course, since I published this, we have the new guidance from the state about masks in public spaces. That's effective statewide through January. So that's not something we need to necessarily be worried about. Not that we were thinking about taking that off, but right now the thing we're thinking about would be more along the lines of how many people do we want to allow to have in this room. We have limited library programs to 20, but I have not limited public group meetings in here. So there was a recital in here this weekend, and I'm sure it was heavily attended by those folks who were there. I'm not sure it's a great idea for us to be acting as an aggregator of human beings right now, but I'm not seeking any change on that, but it's something I want to talk about. And I do get that question frequently from the groups because they know that we've limited our program sizes in both the boardroom and this room. So it's a question. There was a little bit of confusion on the part of some of our groups about that, but it is something as I watch those numbers, it's just something to be aware of. Especially my major concern for that is that the staff have to come in here and help support the groups with information technology when they're in the room. So if there's 90 people in this room, that gets a little dicey to have to send somebody in here and help those folks. So it's just something I'm thinking about. At the same time,
what's the current capacity?
90.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
And I think in a perfect world, 90 people, I'd wanted a bigger room than this, but we don't have a perfect world. So
are you saying that the capacity of this room, if you have a program, it's 20 people?
Correct.
If it's a private group, they can have 90?
Correct. I'm not limiting right now the size of the groups that want to come in. It's the same fire code capacity that it has been right along. There aren't guidelines from the state about the 6-foot distancing or all of those, guidance was, sort of taken down by the state. So we're back at fire code capacity. But when I have library staff in here doing the program and we're bringing in people, I just think it's a good idea for us to have that limited to 20 people in this room, because that allows us to space this out. Expecting that people would police themselves, the public for their groups, they can make a decision about how many people they would have in a room and what they're comfortable with as far as group size. That said, we do have to come in here and help people. So there's a decision to be made there. So is that okay? In addition, you read in there about the Chapter 25 leave, which talks about government employees placed under mandatory quarantine. I do thank the folks at CSEA for coming with us and working out our understanding of how that works with our employees. When our employees are placed under mandatory leave, under mandatory quarantine by either the state or our county health agency, those hours that they're not working because they're symptomatic are not charged their sick leave accruals. That came into effect last January, but it's actively the implementation of that didn't matter so much over the summer and last year, and has returned to being more frequently needed. So I think there's a little bit more attention to that. So the tree removal that I talk about here happened today. So that tree removal was approved by everybody ahead of time, but I did ask Sherry to have checked so we can have that ready for the tree removal services, a small business, have that ready for them tomorrow. But it's the tree on the front of our property, on the Delaware side of the property between us and the neighbors, that has been just absolutely dead and shedding branches for a while on both our property and the neighbor's property. So that tree came down today. It was quite a journey to get that down, but I was happy to see that it was, it's all gone. So that's good. We are continuing with an audit of the diversity represented by our collection. We're getting some early numbers. The benchmarks for this for public libraries are still under active development. And there are several different ways that can be assessed. There are tools that can work on that assessment. There are lots of folks that are coming up with services that could be then maybe purchased by Upper Hudson that would do some of that work. There is some of that work being done for our online collection as well, our ebooks. So that's still, I just want to report on that's still under active pursuit at this point. Yeah.
What is BIPOC?
My comment refers to that, actually. So you want me to?
Yeah.
The acronym BIPOC is a term that has evolved. And actually, it's Black and Indigenous people of color. So if in fact, because I've caught my eye too.
Yeah.
So my comment is just to point that out, that is I won't say subgroup, but it does not cover all people who are considered racially targeted in the United States.
Right.
It's very specific, and I'll talk about the history of it later on, but so it is basically people of African descent, people descended from slaves, and indigenous people. So that it's, I won't say it's limiting, but it does not include them anyway. So when you said about the 8% of the collection, was it just from the groups who are Black and Indigenous? 8%, as far as you know.
Yeah, as far as I know, yes. So there's the tools that we have right now are imperfect. And I think that was the first focus. And then, like you're saying, as it is evolving, this concept of what diversity in the collection means, then the tools are going to get better that allow us to assess the collection.
And I always like to see that there's a broader net too, to look at other socially targeted groups.
Yes.
Whether it be sexual orientation or faith or mental health classes. That so I was glad to see that. And so I'm not sure that 33% guideline is actually for BIPOC folks or just racially targeted folks in general. But I think that's my item.
Okay, thank you. And there are people like their ebooks are so popular right now in our e-audiobooks. We and Libby is our main source of ebooks and e-audiobooks, and that the technology is evolving. And so we have new handouts for people who are both using them straight through Libby on their phone or through Kindle. So we have those new handouts, and I linked to those here. And then we did return the smartboard, which we had not used for a long time in the meeting room and the boardroom. We've returned that to working condition. So people sort of, as things begin to be semi-normal, people would want to request to be able to use the smartboard in that program. So lots of great programs, some of them virtual, many of them in person, again, with those limited numbers. As I explained last month, we're focusing the reservations for the public programs focus on people who are in the Bethlehem School District first, and then they become available a certain date before the programs become available to anybody to sign up for those programs. Because we want to make sure, because they are limited at this point, we want to make sure that we're making them available to everybody. Did want to talk briefly about automatic renewals. This is a thing that has been kicking around for a long, long time. It has since been sort of subsumed by the fine discussion. But this was something that our library and many other libraries were pursuing for years, was a way, if an item is available for renewal, why are we making people take an action to renew it and then just go ahead and renew that item for them if they still haven't checked out? Obviously, if it was on hold or not renewable for some reason or renewed too many times, it would not be automatically renewed. So that's something that is, if it happens, it would be done as a system level setting. And that's under discussion, but I just wanted to mention it to you. Also going to mention briefly the New York State Digital Equity Portal. We are always concerned about broadband access for the public, and we just wanted a little bit of information and data about how many people, how many households there were in our school district with no broadband internet connection. It looks like about 1,100. That's a significant number of our population that don't have access to broadband. There's lots of initiatives on both the state and federal level right now to address that, but it is partially what the library also addresses, but people have to come here or go to one of our sites to use the internet. But that is, that equity is something that the library is concerned about, and we're happy to have a little bit of data about that.
Hey, Jeff, can you explain the map first? I didn't understand the map. The different color, the shades in different colors.
Yeah, that's sort of, and Catherine's on. I know she can pop in a little bit if she can disentangle me a little bit, but I believe.
Yes,
Thank you.
I'll just tell you that the digital equity portal doesn't divide the groups by school district, which would be ideal for us. That those borders run contiguous to our borders. For the library, instead, this is the town of New Scotland and the town of Bethlehem, and those dark green and light green areas are census tracts.
Okay.
So we could also break this up into zip code and get kind of a different light green, dark green. I'll tell you, most of our area is all some shade of green. That's a pretty good amount of households with computing devices. But you'll see that the most notable part is that 1,100 figure, which is the number of households with no broadband internet connection. They could have mobile connections, they could have dial-up only, but this is a great portal to check out. I thought I would highlight it so anyone could look at it and see what's going on in the area around us related to broadband.
Great, thanks.
And then lots of continuing education, and the NILA reports are attached. I'm not going to run through those for you. We'll scroll down here quickly for the just some statistical analysis. And for those of you who are able to watch the state of the library, that a little bit of this data is there. What I'm pleased to report, and I continue to be more pleased to report, is we're still seeing big increases year over year. But of course, last year we were a little bit further into the pandemic than maybe we are right now, depending on your measure. But our total circulation continues to inch closer and closer to what we would say is our expected circulation. So this month was at 45,000. We would normally have expected for November, I would say roughly 50,000. So we're within 5,000 of where we would have expected our circulation to be had the pandemic not happened. So obviously last year, those numbers were significantly lower than that. So I'm just pleased that those numbers continue to track closer to our expected circulation, and that's one measure, if not the only measure, of how the library is being used. At the same time, if you notice down here, I don't know if you can see my little pointer, but if you look at door count, which is in the middle of the miscellaneous, while certainly up over last year by 120%, we only had 5 people from the door last November, 5,000 people from the door last November, up to almost 13,000 this year. That number continues to be, let's say, half-ish, maybe a healthy half of what we would expect the door count to be in a normal year. So while our circulation and the use of the library's collection from a functional standpoint is inching closer and closer to normal every month, the door count of the library continues to be low. So there are some other uses that aren't circulation of the library that haven't returned from the pandemic. And I can give you my top examples of what those might be. Story times, right? So programs for preschool children. There's hundreds of those patrons who come in and out of here every week. So that number continues to be lower. Programs in general, the number of community groups that can meet in here, and then also add on to that the lack of that afternoon study time, where normally in the afternoons this place all fall long is just every horizontal surface is covered with people studying, small groups with tutors, with groups of students. There's some of that going on, and I'm pleased to see that returning a little bit, but it is nowhere near what we would normally expect as far as use of the building. So So we're not normal. Things aren't normal, but I'm glad to see that some of our trends, some of our measurements of our use are normal-ish. That said, we did have 49 public uses of the meeting rooms last year, and that represented 612 people were in here using this room, mostly a little bit in the boardroom for their public meetings. So we were able to do that. Ebook use, again, overall, streaming video and audiobooks continue to be strong performers for us. I'm not expecting that audio will ever go back to CDs, as more and more cars don't have CD players in them, and the only access to audiobooks will be downloaded and either streamed or downloaded onto people's devices or into their car that way. So that's not something that's likely to return ever. Are we there? Nope. Well, I guess we know how much the batteries are lasting. All right, I'll steal that from you. Am I back? Nope. Mark, can you hear me at all?
I can hear you, yeah. Loud and
Okay.
clear.
I don't know why you can't hear me in the room.
Yeah.
Okay, well, sorry about that. I'll just try to speak up. If you guys at home can hear me, that's important too. So then that's it. And then wireless use is up as we expect, as the door count is higher than it was last year. Wireless use is up, and just the trends are there for you. Our electrical use and gas use, again, tracking like normal, both on electric and gas. It's just the cost of those things has gone up a little bit, which is not great. So that's that. Any questions on the monthly report? Yeah.
I have a question on fines, okay? When several months ago, we started collecting fines again, and there was a little bit of surprise on the part of some patrons.
Yep.
What's happened in the interim? Have things settled down? Are people still coming about? Has it just kind of settled back to routine? Just general.
Yeah, I would say it's settled into routine. I'm not getting, people aren't coming to me to complain about the fines, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Whereas when, when things change, people are confused and they can get upset about it. So.
Okay, that's what I was hoping.
You bet.
Okay.
So I was just wondering, is the makerspace open now? A patron had asked me, the area where there used to be a Cricut machine and the VHS converter.
Yeah,
and
so
all that.
the studio makerspace, it's not working. Okay. The studio makerspace is just about to open. So we were testing it with Rabbi Simon from the Jewish View. We're testing it with him. He's working on the space in there as far as the video is concerned, but we're going to open up that space available to book through the calendar.
So what about are we talking about the same thing then, where with a Cricut machine?
There's going to be
that's all the
they're
same?
getting mushed together, right? So the Cricut machine and the converters and 8mm. Well, some of these things we decided to send home with people rather than have them use them in the library just for COVID reasons. So let me go grab another microphone.
Okay, great.
Can you hear me now? So we'll see how many of these I can talk through in one meeting. Sorry about that.
That's one. I'll keep count. One.
One. It's a 5 microphone meeting. I've held you guys a long time. Sorry about that. So.
Yep. Other questions for Jeff?
We have them. We still collect them every month. It just people weren't particularly interested in me reporting them. So people like the graph a little bit more. We track it every month. So I can get that for you right after the meeting. I have it in this computer. I can get it for you pretty quickly. Yeah.
Jeff, I have a quick question, and I'm not sure if you scroll through it. There was something about volunteers and the insurance plan.
Yeah.
Is that in your report?
It's in my report. It's in my NILA report, actually. So that was there was a great, I guess I will talk about my NILA report. There was a great session by Stephanie Cole Adams, who's a library attorney from the Buffalo area. And she, the presentation was really well done because it's sort of a Jeopardy game and it was mostly focused on library trustees, but obviously lots of directors were there as well. And that was one of the questions that came up, was just about volunteers. We did ask our attorney, our insurance agent today. He got back to me. I'm still reading through everything, but yes, our trustees and volunteers and friends are covered. Not for injury, like everybody's covered, whether you're a patron or whoever it is, if you trip and fall or something like that, that's general liability. But as employees, people who are volunteering for the library, they're classified as employees, and they're covered under our general liability policy. And there's certain exceptions. I'm still trying to understand what those exceptions are, but they're not classes of volunteers. It's certain types of liability. Advertising liability, I literally have no idea what that means. But so I have a few questions to go back to our insurance agent for, but when acting as volunteers, whether they're friends or volunteers or trustees acting as volunteers, then there's liability coverage when you're performing the duties that are part of your library duties.
Yeah, sorry, I'll keep better track of where I was writing notes about things, but I had that down for the insurance. At some point, I'd like to see the insurance.
Absolutely.
No,
I'll send it right to you. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah, you might want to circulate that to the full board. It'd be helpful.
You bet.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, I must have forward with that.
All right. If you guys can give me 1 second, I can even answer Harmeet's question live. So this is our energy use report. It should be up on the screen. Sorry if it's small. So from a BTU standpoint, cost per therm is 91 cents, and this includes the service, so it's not a pure. I just divide the total cost of what we pay every month by the number of therms and that we're paying. So we're last year 47, this year 91 cents, and again per kilowatt hour last year 9 cents, this year 14. Yeah, you bet. And again, because the cost of the service is included in that price, when I divide that up, if you want to know the actual cost per therm, they give that to us too from National Grid. It's just, but it's a good indicator of the overall price increase. That the service doesn't change.
Yeah, it looks like it's gone down though since high at in August, 130. If I'm looking at that right.
Yeah, in September was 130 over the summer. Yeah, it's yeah, but we're using almost none, so the cost per therm and well, see, that's what I'm saying. So over the summer, we're still paying for the service, even though we're using almost no therms. It's best a comparison to compare the same month to the same month last year. That's
yeah. Okay. Okay. Any other questions for Jeff? All right, moving on to UHLS report.
No report this month because there's no meeting in December, so nothing to report.
Okay. Okay, moving on to new business, the health insurance invoice, page 27.
Sure. So this invoice represents the prepaid, the parts of our health insurance that we need to prepay to our health insurance broker. The largest part of this is funding the flex spending accounts, which the employees actually pay the full amount of them, but they're available to everybody on the first day. So we have to prepay all of that. And then over the year, the library funds itself back for those flex spending accounts. But the broker is not going to take that risk on. That's on the library because we offer a flex spending account. So in addition, there's some service fees for the pre-funding for the retiree health insurance. And then each of there's just some administrative costs for running our health insurance. So these aren't the bulk of our health insurance costs. Those we pay each month to CDPHP or to MVP. We pay those month to month, but there's certain administrative costs that are paid up front. Like I said, the biggest of them is that flex spending account. And then, so we need to get this to them because that begins in January. So this is over my authorization limit. So I need your approval to pre-fund the health insurance.
Okay, any questions on that, or I'll take a motion?
I make a motion to accept it as presented on page 27.
I will second that.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, seeing no opposition, that motion passes. Moving on to the rooftop unit quote.
Okay, so this is a long pursued quote from Train for the replacement of one of the air conditioning coils on rooftop unit number 2. So this cost has been, we were seeking additional quotes on this. We have a quote from Johnson Controls. We have a quote from Train for this. There's a portion of this that really can only come through Train, which is how the system and the unit hook up to the Train control system can only be done by Train, can't be done. So the physical replacement can be done by somebody else. So we have a quote for that, but we cannot quote the part of this that's sole source, which is the part that Train does as far as the control units are concerned. Getting another quote for this has proven to be difficult, so we asked Train to requote this through one of the U.S. communities procurement contracts, which are government contracts that allow us under our procurement policy when it's under the bid limit, which is either $35,000 for for public work like this would be $35,000. So when it's under $35,000, we're allowed to sign on to another government's quote, and U.S. communities is one of the associations of governments that we're affiliated with, so that they can quote this under a pre-negotiated price for both a discount for the hardware and the labor to replace it. So we asked them to quote that for us. And this is that quote. And I'm recommending that we have Train replace the rooftop unit on this. I know it's hard to think about air conditioning right now, but by the time the copper gets done and gets put up on the roof, there will be a little bit of crane work because this will not go up through the hatch, but not it won't be big crane work, which is good. So
Is this part of the system? Is this part of the system?
you should be hearing, yeah, the fact that you're not getting anything is not ideal.
Yeah, okay. I need like electric static. Okay, so is this part of the system that we just put in 2 years ago?
Well, it wasn't 2 years ago, but
Okay.
yes, the new HVAC system. Yes.
Okay, seems like it's 2 years ago.
Yep.
So no warranty, no help, nothing.
Correct. Yeah, we're through the warranty. We had a 1-year warranty on the parts when they were installed.
Is this normal? Should we expect this every few years, a part like this is gonna go? I mean, I know it is what it is. But
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to say the answer is no. There were some, this is related, if you remember when the units were installed, there were some coil leaks when they were put in, and then they were fixed under warranty by the folks from Johnson Controls, who are the manufacturers of those rooftop units. They were all repaired. So I would expect that there's going to be some amount of this. There's 4 coils per unit, 4 units of 16 coils up there. So I'm imagining there'll be some free on leakage.
Okay, can I just suggest we keep a file?
You bet, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep,
That he would. Keep a file on it. Okay.
Yeah.
Temporarily, yeah.
you got
Not
it.
having things fail, like
Yep.
we're gonna have it every couple of years. I'd like to build a file.
Yep,
We
you
ever
bet.
decide to use it.
And my mic's dead, but remind me what budget line that's coming out of?
It's going to come out of building and grounds repair or capital projects. Probably would blow the buildings and grounds repair budget right out of the water. So,
Okay. Thank you.
yeah.
Okay, other questions on the invoice or the estimate, excuse me?
No, I was gonna go ahead and make a motion that we accept the invoice as presented on page 28.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, that motion is carried. Okay, moving into old business. We have a couple different things in old business. The first one is the long-range plan. Maybe we could do an update on where we stand on that.
Sure. So we're we're working on, I think we need to come back. I was talking to a few folks about this. We talked to Harmeet before last month's meeting. And I think it's important that that long-range plan committee come back and have another meeting. I will send out, we're into the holidays now, but early in the new year, we have to bring the committee back and we'll work on a long-range plan committee. We'll work through the services plan. I think we have the building plan that's been approved. So we will work through the services plan and get that put to bed early in the new year.
Okay, that sounds good. Any questions on that? All right, on the building committee update, any old business on the building committee? I think we talked about starting to interview or get a stable of architects or engineers.
Yep.
Or something.
So we have the names of some architects, and we will again. Now it's we'll be into January, but we'll interview some architects, and we'll have a recommendation for the board for some design work.
Can I just jump in on this? I did call, I had a conversation with Jeff just because I had a couple of questions on his directory report thing. And I asked him about the building committee, and I think I'm on it. I believe I'm on it. So I'm going to encourage us to move that along come the new year. It's time. And I also asked Jeff how many people on the board have been involved in building a bond. I know professionally, I know you have a lot of experience on that. But if the majority of the board members have not built a bond before, in the event this goes out for a bond, I suggested that either through Upper Hudson or through some agency or person, if in fact the majority of the board members have not done a bond before, it might be helpful to have someone come in and just walk through the stages and timeframes and what's a good recommendation in terms of this part and that part. So that's the recommendation. I'm not sure if the other board members are interested in that.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Honestly, we should have someone come in.
Okay.
Lisa, do you know anyone in Upper Hudson, or do you think that's something they would do?
Offhand, I don't, but I'm sure Tim might have some suggestions if we check in with him.
I recall a conversation that a few of us had with Judy Kehoe when we talked about bonding at one point. I don't remember the name of the firm, Judy, you'll know, but there's a firm, I want to say like in Rochester, she suggested might be a consultant to help us through a process. So Judy can, I'm sure, point us in one entity. So that's a possibility.
I also point blank asked Jeff if Judy might be a resource too. I don't know how the board feels about that. But having done 2 bonds with her, just even the time frame, even just the basics, A, B, C, D, the major tasks, she may or may not, but it's up to the board, it's up to the staff, but I think it would be helpful. So is that something that people want to do, like to move forward on that? I see shaking heads.
I would.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. Yeah.
Okay, we'll get it set up.
Okay. Any other building committee or old business people want to discuss tonight? Okay, moving into future business. Any ideas for future business? I'll leave that at general open.
Sure.
Quick ask if we can, mindset. If we can outreach to the union and ask what their talking points, at least ask them to start thinking about it. We can do that before the end of the year, just because I figure we'll have to ask a few times.
Okay.
I recall, I think at the last meeting, that we would say we were gonna put that on the agenda for January.
I think for us internally to talk about what we want to do, I also want to be able to react to what they're thinking.
Yep. Yeah.
We didn't talk about fines, but I would assume that that's at that's at the committee level. I would assume that the committee would want to have some additional time to digest numbers. I think, Carolyn, you brought up something at the last meeting. It's something else for the committee to consider about the impact of.
Yes, I had wanted to bring for the presentation about the impact of early childhood literacy. I think we found something. It's not exactly what we had hoped. So we may find something in the interim, but There's actually an article in the Times, just that might be helpful. I think we read it. So I think, yes, we will put that together for prior to the next committee meeting. But we
And you're on the committee.
we didn't find exactly the presentation that we were looking for, or if it had more data when it was actually given live. The written materials were not as comprehensive as those.
So I'm gonna suggest subcommittee, but I know we wanted time to digest, I think we've had time to digest it, maybe in January, the subcommittee get together and then make a recommendation.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeff, for your Herculean efforts in trying to schedule us.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll get, I mean, Thanksgiving's probably not the ideal time for Jeff to be asking for more time from you. So we'll regroup many of these committees and we will circle back in January and we'll get this put to bed. So.
Sherry, you were gonna look up some information for now for me as well.
Yes, yes. I've had it done and I've just forgotten to send you a note. I forgot all about it. Sorry.
Okay,
I do have that information. I'll send you a note tomorrow.
okay, thank you.
Okay, any other future business?
In my brief conversation with Jeff, I did mention I'm the only person on the personnel committee. So if folks want to join that committee, I'm not sure if they'll ever have like work, but I'm still the only person, board trustee representative there. And something to consider in the future is to assess the personnel needs of the library and what may or may not have to change in order to meet the needs of the evolving needs of the library.
Okay, so that's a call out for additional volunteer for the committee and also a topic suggestion on the future needs, personal needs of the library. Great. Okay, those are both good suggestions. Okay, any of the future business?
Can I just check out, this is Charmaine again, one more thing, can I check out, I remember editing the use of space, I don't think that's the real name of it, but the policy about the use of space, because when you mentioned when you said the word
meeting notes.
tutor, it
Yeah.
reminded me, I don't think that came back to the board, did it?
It did not.
Okay. Is that just waiting for additional review or revision, or just didn't get queued up and it was?
I think it didn't get queued up and it needs to go back out to the committee for after its assimilation.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any other topics people want to bring up before we move into public participation? I just want to make one remark in one of the presentations, you talked about the listening sessions. And I want to say for the record, those are excellent. The staff does a great job on those and they are, while they're sometimes sparsely attended, it's a great educational opportunity. So I would commend the staff for that. Michael does a great job on those.
Thanks, Mark.
Yep, sure. Okay, any other public participation?
Good. Okay. Nope.
Okay. Okay, now we need to move into executive session. So I need a motion.
So moved. Charmaine.
Yep. So I'm looking for a motion to move into executive session to discuss the employment history of a particular individual.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay, motion carries. Thanks, everyone.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night. Please do.
Merry Christmas.
Yep, have a nice holiday.
Years of a holiday.
Yeah.